Welcome to Eat, Sleep, Wine, Repeat, a podcast for all you wine lovers who, if you're like me, just cannot get enough of the good stuff. I'm Yanina Dore, your host, brand ambassador, wine educator and sommelier. So stick with me as we dive deeper into this ever-evolving, wonderful world of wine. And wherever you are listening to this, cheers to you. Hi everyone, hope you're well. If you're not driving, if you're not already out of the house, pause this, go to the fridge, pour that glass, come back, and then press play. We are going to talk about Carver today and the other sparkling wines that come from the Penedès region. I have a great guest, Andrés Rangel. He is a sommelier with experience in Michelin-star restaurant Gymkhana. He has won the Sud de France Sommelier of the Year last year in 2019. So we're certainly going to ask him a few questions about taking part in a sommelier competition. And he's also from the Catalan region, so he's going to give us the real lowdown on Carver and those other sparkling wines. Also, I just want to take a note to say thank you so much for all those kind of reviews and those comments coming in. They have made me smile, they have made me jump up and down and given me some real focus. I have to say, seeing as this is a Carver episode, I wanted to read a quick review from Goo. Great name, well done on that. They wrote, "She's just bubbly like your favourite fizzy." Wow, thank you so much. I can tell you that when I read that, I got even more bubbly. So that was brilliant. So keep those comments and reviews coming in. It's really appreciated. Now, my winery of the week is Llopart. Now, they've been making sparkling wine since 1887, and the wine that I'm going to try is their original 1887. So this is pretty easy for me to remember because it's all over the bottle, and in fact, the label is a reproduction of the exact label when they made the first sparkling wine in 1887, so that's pretty cool. It's a very cool label. If you haven't seen it on my Instagram, I will have a picture there for you. Now, I mentioned 1887, but they have documents stating that the family was making wine and had vineyards in the late 1300s. So they're a family-owned winery that has a lot of history. You can find them in the Suburbs region of Penedès. Now, they're one of the 9 wineries to break away from the Cava DO. Their wines are now labelled as the brand Corpinnat. Now, we're going to talk about Corpinnat much later on, but that signifies very good quality and strict criteria to make fantastic traditional method sparkling wines. They have an amazing array of sparkling wines. They have about 8 different types. They do make some still, so if anyone wants to try some Catalan wines, look out for their Clos del Fossils, their Vitis or Carmi, that is theirs. But in terms of the sparkling wine, they make some absolute crackers that are really long aged. Now, the wine that I'm trying is aged for 120 months. Yeah, that's crazy. They also have their Llopart, which is aged for 82 months, their Ex Vitae, which is 100 months. So they take things seriously. But what's fantastic, no matter what you get, even their Brut Reserve, which is their level entry in the UK, you can get it for about £13. So awesome value, and that's been aged for 20 months. So do check out this winery. Now, the wine that I'm trying is one of their more premium ones. It comes from their single vineyard site. It's called Les Flanders. Again, on the back of the bottle, you've got so much information. So this single vineyard is like this amphitheatre that's got limestone rock that dates back 20 million years. It's actually a declared area of natural interest due to all the fauna and the flora, hence the fact that it's very easy for them to be organic. They've got this great diversity of animals and nature and everything working for them. They're surrounded by this beautiful Mediterranean forest, so it's lovely. And all the vines were planted between 1940 to 1960, so there is some fantastic age on them, producing spectacular fruit. The wine that I'm drinking, the original 1887, is 50% Montenegro. Montenegro, just to confuse everyone, it's Parraje, one of the main 3 grape varieties, but apparently it's a phenolic adaptation of Parraje when grown in mountainous terrain. I have looked that up. I didn't know that myself, so that's something. We learn something new every day, right? So it's 50% Montenegro, 25% Xarel-lo, which is kind of their main grape variety that gives Carver and the sparkling wines of this region its oomph, and then 25% Macabeo. Because this is Brut nature, it has less than 3 grams of residual sugar. It is manually riddled. So riddling is when you turn the bottle slowly over the course of, I don't know, up to 6 months to get the yeast that has been sat in this bottle, that's kind of been produced from that second fermentation. It's stuck there. You've got to get it out. You need to shift it very, very slowly down to the neck of the bottle to freeze it and then pop it out, so you've got this now clean liquid. They do the manual riddling. Most people use gyro pallets now, which is just this amazing little kind of box that is automated, and you can basically riddle the whole thing in this little gyro pallet within a few days. So they do this manually. This is a very, very special wine. You can get this at allaboutwine.co.uk at £35.49. Sorry for everyone else outside of the UK, but it gives you an idea. Something that's been aged for 10 years, manually riddled, hand harvested, super premium fruit, and actually it's the same price as your more basic standard house champagne. So let's give this a try. Okay, so on the nose, straight away you can see this is not a fresh, new, sparkling wine. It's very much like baked apples with a cinnamon edge and very toasted brioche, and kind of it's a type of, I think, manuka honey actually on the nose. The bubbles are very fine, but they're quite soft. They've softened up a lot. This is not a rich, creamy style of Corpinnat. This is quite linear, actually, quite fresh, but the finish is very dried apricots and walnuts. It's very savoury. Now, this is a completely dry style anyway. There is that note of kind of that like honey just over the top of toasted brioche that's coming through on the palate, but it is entirely dry. This is a great example of an aged sparkling wine. As a wine ages, it will get more nutty, more dried fruits, and the honey notes will come through. Very different to a brand new released non-vintage. Also, this was disgorged, in fact, and you can see this on the back of the bottle, in May 2019. Now, disgorgement method is actually taking those yeast out of the bottle once it's been frozen. So right at the end, before you're about to release it. Now, a recently disgorged bottle of Cava, Corpinnat, champagne will be much fresher. The yeast acts as a preservative. Once you take that out, then the aging can really start happening. So all this very nuttiness and all that walnuts I'm getting now, I reckon are very different to had I drunk this a year ago. So that is the interesting thing with sparkling wine. So check out disgorgement. That really can make a difference to your experience. Definitely delicious. At the £35 mark, if you like the idea of trying a wine that has a lot of age on it, this is phenomenal. So cheers, everyone. I want to touch on the history of Cava. As you may not already know, Cava has actually been made since the 1800s, and it was actually Josep Raventos that first created the second fermentation sparkling traditional method wine in 1872. He had gone to France, learnt the methods, and then brought it back. Now, this was actually a very good time for Cava to really embrace this method, because phylloxera, this very evil bug that kind of attacked all the vines, it came across from America into Europe and started in France. So they were really struggling with all the damage of their vines, so Cava could really fill a gap. At this time, they were not calling it Cava, so they were calling it champagne. It was only much later, around the late 1900s, that champagne started to be very protective over their labelling, and that nobody could use that term except for them. So in 1972, Cava became the official name, and Cava actually means cave, which is named after the caves underneath the ground where they were aging the bottles of wine. Now, later on, we're going to talk about Raventos y Blancs. You'll realise that this is actually a family that is really worth knowing. They've done some very interesting stuff for the history of Cava. They go back to the late 1400s, so this is apparently one of the oldest documented wineries in the world. The Raventos family then actually married Mariana Cordonu, and you definitely have heard of the Cordonu Cavas. Cordonu and Freshness are the two massive players of Cava. In fact, Cordonu has a wine called Anna de Cordonu, and it's named after the last family member of the Cordonu before that name got lost, and it was the Raventos family that carried on this dynasty. So Cordonu wines were made, and it was actually during the 1900s that Josep Maria Raventos y Blanc massively promoted and created the Cava de and the expansion of what's to be this humongous Corpinnat winery. Then actually in 1986, Raventos y Blanc founded their own specific winery entirely based on quality. So although Corpinnat has the cheaper carvers, much more everyday carvers, and they do have some super premium carvers, even there's 3 single vineyards that are in the Cava de Paraje Calificado category, which we're going to talk about later. But the Raventos y Blanc is all about quality right from the beginning. And we are going to talk a little bit more about how in 2012 they created their own appellation, Concha del Ru Anoia. So they have done a lot for the Penedès region and for Cava. And I mentioned Penedès. Cava is centred around this area, and this is just about 1 hour from Barcelona, so super easy to visit. About 95% of it is made in Penedès, and about 75% of all Cava is actually made in a little town called Sant Sadurní d'Anoia. So that is definitely the town you want to go and visit should you want to drink fizz in the place of origin. Now, there are so many more labelling terms, brands, classifications, so I think it's time to go to the interview and we can start talking about it further there. So, Andres, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Jamila.
And you are tuning in all the way from Spain, aren't you?
Yeah, so right now I'm in Murcia, but I come from Barcelona where I'm living. Actually, I'm living these days in a city of Tarragona called Calafell, that is part of the Penedès area. So wine cava producer area.
That makes you officially an expert, right?
Well, I'm an expert.
Well, to introduce you for people who I'm sure don't know who you are, you have, and correct me if I'm wrong, as an amazing sommelier, you started being a sommelier in London, didn't you? So you studied wine in Barcelona, is that correct?
Yeah, I studied wine in Barcelona, in the Sommelier School of Barcelona. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I studied there.
I've done some research about you, and you were going to be I was going to say famous, perhaps not famous. You were going to be a professional rugby player, no?
I wanted to be, yeah.
Oh no, was the skill not quite there?
Here in Spain it's very difficult to be a professional rugby player. I've been playing for my club, and when I was younger, I've been playing for the Spanish national team. So under 18, 19, 21, okay. And then I decided to put rugby on a side and continue with my studies and professional career, because it's not as famous in France or England, UK. It's not the same that we are playing. It's more amateur league.
Okay, well, fair enough. So you've taken the wine world by storm, because you've not only been obviously working your way through places in London, you finished off with Gymkhana as well, and then what I want to talk about is this sommelier competition. So you actually were the winner, Sommelier of the Year in 2019 for the Sud de France, which is awesome. That means that you do know what you're talking about, just a little bit, right?
Yeah.
You are very humble. Now, for people that don't even know that there are sommelier competitions, many people are aware that you generally have to pour a magnum at the end of the competition. That's like the final stage. You have to pour a magnum into how many glasses?
It was the maximum glasses. I think it was 16 glasses.
Yeah. And you have to get the perfect pour, right? You have to finish the bottle perfectly to win.
Yeah. You have to pour the maximum and on the perfect line, serve the glass, and it's quite challenging. And you have to leave the less quantity of wine inside the bottle, or finish the bottle if it's possible.
I love that. So, tell me what else you have to do. The magnum pouring is the final stage, right?
Yeah, it was the final task. So
separating the lions from the lambs. I don't know if that's the same. So what did you do to get to that stage?
So first of all, they did a test to be able to participate. It was a writing test about Languedoc-Roussillon, about the south of France. Mm-hmm. Then when they selected the 10 candidates for the challenge, we started the journey. And first of all, we did a writing test where you had to find, for example, the wine list mistakes. And they have a very difficult task that was to recognize different pictures of the region and mention what was that.
Wow.
What was very challenging, that one. It was not easy one. And then we did a tasting. It was for, I think it was 6 wines, 6, 7 wines, yeah. I think it was 6 wines, blind tasting. And then they selected the 3 candidates for the final candidates.
And you just went and won. Didn't you? Hurrah, hurrah, Anders, the saviour of the wine world. That has got to be a good feeling, though. Come on.
Yeah, it was. It was very satisfying, very emotional. Very, very happy for that.
So when competitions begin again, are you going to challenge yourself? Are you going to go and take on the sommelier wine world again and prove that you've got what it takes to win something else?
Yeah, I would love to continue. I was expecting to participate this year in the World South of France Sommelier Competition. That was the winner of UK and different countries in south of France. I was expecting to participate there, but after all this pandemic situation, they postponed it. So,
yeah, of course. So tell me, you're this incredible sommelier with a wealth of knowledge. You can even see a picture of a vineyard and you know which region it is. Have you ever thrown any wine over somebody?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, every sommelier does it at some point, right?
Yeah.
Was it bad?
Well, it's not that bad. It was. It was in my rocky days. So.
Oh yeah. Was it a red wine over a woman in a white dress?
Luckily, it was a white wine in a woman with a black dress, but
that's the perfect way to make the mistake, isn't it?
Yeah. My God, I can remember. I can see the wine dropping on ladies' back. So I have still this image.
That poor woman. So everybody listening, if you now know Andrés Rangel, it's all, as we would say in English, Rangel. If you're going to type this in, you can find amazing videos from Andrés talking about wine. Caveat, in Spanish, right? There's nothing in English.
Yeah, it's in Spanish.
Okay, so for you Españoles and the people practicing and learning Spanish, you can go to YouTube and type in Andrés Rangel. I'll put the information in the show notes and learn all about, I presume, are you focusing more on Spanish wines?
I'm trying to focus on Spanish wines a little bit at the beginning, but I want to expand on international wines. I've been doing some videos with international wines, so French wines mainly.
Well, of course, your love is always going to be, I assume, in Catalonia wines. Right?
Yeah.
So we're going to talk a little bit about the controversial, and I use the word controversial because it is true. There's a lot going on in Penedès with sparkling wine and not just Cava. And I reckon the majority of our listeners, when we say Cava, they know that we're talking about a Spanish wine. But if you start talking about everything else, they're going to be lost. So I think let's start from the beginning. First of all, tell us a little bit about Cava, the region, and kind of what people should know about maybe some labelling and what's happening. That's a bit of a broad start, isn't it?
It's good, yeah.
Where do we start, Andres?
So, mainly to explain what is Cava. Cava, it's denominación de origen from Spain, producing quality sparkling wines coming from a second alcoholic fermentation in specific areas in Spain, not in Catalonia, not only in Penedès. The main production is from Penedès area, is from Sant Sadurní d'Anoia, but it's almost 97% of the production, so it's quite high, and is considered the capital of Cava. But the thing is that it's not geographical denominación de origen. It's because it extends from Barcelona to Tarragona to Lleida to Girona to La Rioja to Navarra, Aragon.
I've seen
Valencia,
some Cava coming from Extremadura, down in the southwest of Spain.
Yeah, there are in total 10 regions that you can find Cava producers. Yeah. And then you have a minimum of quality and restrictions method of productions that you have to follow, but it's not something very specific of terms of origin. Mm-hmm. So if we compare, for example, with it's not good to compare, but if we compare with the Champagne that is coming from the region of Champagne and it's aged at least 12 months on the list, Cava is the same method than Champagne, coming from a big area in Spain, specific areas in Spain, and is aged during 9 months on the list. It's more like a Cremant style. You can compare.
But I think also it's worth noting for anybody who just wants the simple terms of Cava, they can actually, because there is standard Cava, which you just said is 9 months, they can also look out for Reserva and Gran Reserva, and they do actually have little stickers, different colour stickers, don't they, on the bottle that can help people identify how long they've been aged for.
Yeah, so this is stickers, the different labels that you can find. Certification of the Cava. Reserva is for 15 months minimum. Gran Reserva is 30 months. And you have now a new sticker, more recent new sticker, that is the Cava de Paraje Calificado. That this is a more regulated labeling terms. So, Cava de Paraje Calificado is a cava coming from a specific place, more specific place. So they are looking to recognize the soil and the microclimate conditions of a specific production area for the of cava, the highest quality. Yeah. So they produce cavas under this labeling term, aged for 36 months, but at the same time there are other regulations like the yielding, like the minimum owning age of the vineyards and owning vineyards. It should be manual harvest. It should be a planting density between, I think it's 1,500 hectares and 3,000 hectares. So it's more restricted. It should be vintage cava. Yeah, it has to be vintage, and it has to be made in a Brut style. You can, what it means, Brut, extra Brut, or nature, Brut nature.
So no more than 6 grams of sugar maximum in that quality level.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's interesting, because I think this is part of the fight and part of what we were talking about, which Cava specifically, Cava Dio and using the name Cava, they are trying to prove that they are quality wines. I think this probably takes us to Corpinnat, showcasing that certain small producers who believe in quality are sick and tired of some of the rules, or should I say lack of rules?
Yeah, maybe it's just the controversy. So, Corpinnat is, how can I explain it? So, everything starts when the boom of cava, of big cava producers wanted to go far away in terms of lowering prices, controlling prices and production, losing quality in the way. So some producers were looking to have a mention or a specific denominación or specific appellation for a specific place and specific quality regulations for a specific area, and trying to find their identity. So that's the main origin of this mention right now, because it's not considered a denominación de origen. It's not inside of any appellation. Corpinnat is a recognized brand right now. Yeah, it's the association of viticultures and producers of Corpinnat, that it's the specific area. What means Corpinnat is coming from 3 different words. Maybe it's a little bit difficult to memorize or to remember this new word. So, but Corpinnat, it has a reason. There is a reason behind, because it's the union of 3 words. Cor, that means heart in Catalan.
The heart, yeah?
Yeah. Heart. Pina, what is the Latin word for Penedès. And nat, that means born.
Oh.
If you put it together, what it means is born in the heart of Penedès. So beautiful. That is what they are trying to represent. Yeah. We can compare right now Corpinnat with, I was thinking on a VDP German association. Okay. It's the association of top producers in Germany from different regions.
Yeah, and they'll label you'll see that on the bottle. Yeah, I suppose so.
Yeah.
And as far as I know, with Corpinnat, everything is coming from Penedès, so it is specific to an area, right?
Yeah.
Everything has to be organic and hand harvested, and the aging is at least 18 months. So again, everything is much more smaller yields, better control. This is their way of saying you are guaranteed great quality if you buy one of our wines that is part of the Corpinnat brand, right?
Yeah, that's it. So they produce traditional method quality sparkling wines coming from the boundaries of Penedès, hand harvest, ecological, 100% produced in the States, local varieties, minimum 18-month aging. There are different restrictions to make it more, to control the quality of these wines.
But I remember, and if I was a very small producer, I remember reading about Freshness. So Freshness obviously being, one of the big ones. Yeah. They got fined 2 million euros a few years ago because they actually got found that they were not doing the minimum 9 months liege aging.
I can imagine.
Yeah, exactly. And because of course they're the big guys, they want a load of money, and they're probably pretty greedy. The fact that they're doing that completely lets down the whole Carver category for everybody else taking things seriously, right?
Yeah, it's a shame because these people working on the same level, doing things in a way, and people doing working on a proper way to produce quality wines, and they don't have any distinction regarding that. So it's good to work on something like.
I read an article a while back, and I thought it was really interesting that actually the area in Penedès is around the same size as Champagne, but to show a comparison, there's about 5,000 producers in Champagne, showing you the small guys making their personal hand-harvested production, compared to about less than 300 producers in the Cava de Paraje, which just shows that it's much more kind of, I guess, industrial. And that's where now I think it's bringing lots of producers to turn away, create a new brand, showcase something to the public that their wines are more special than the rest, right? Yeah.
So basically the Cava, the Penedès and Cava de Paraje is controlled by a few producers. It's who has the control. There are, I think, in total is a land that you can find a lot of growers, of viticulturalists, people that have their own land and sell the grapes. But you can find only, I think it's 200 something Cava producers. So it's
tiny, really.
It's tiny, yeah.
Well, at least it means anybody who's got a bit of a plan to try and memorise everyone, it's a lot easier to do it for Cava de Paraje than in Champagne. So, I suppose the last one we haven't talked about was Raventos Blanc that quit the Cava de Paraje to start Conca de Ru and Anoia. And what can you do it for me?
Conca del Rio Anoia.
There we go. Anoia. To get annoyed.
Anoia.
To get annoyed.
Yeah.
Anoia. Okay. Am I right? Is it Raventos Blanc that started that?
Yeah.
Not an appellation, that classification.
Yeah. So in 2012, Raventos Blanc was the first winery moving out of Cava. What they did was they wanted to create their own mention with the Conca del Rio Anoia wines. That is where they are located. They are looking for, again, producing their own identity, producing the traditional method sparkling wines, looking for this identity, this specific region, this specific area. So what they do is they create these restrictions with 100% local varieties. In that case, they use Xarel-lo, Macabeo, Parellada, Bastard Negre, that it's quite unusual grape variety, Sumoll and Xarel-lo Vermell.
Oh my God, I don't even know these last ones. Obviously, we'll talk about the 3 varieties in a minute. The last ones again, say them slowly.
So, Bastard Negre, Sumoll,
Bastard Negre. So
Bastard,
Bastard, like a bastard.
Like bastard, like a bastard.
But you sound so much better when you say it. So, Bastard Negre, and that's obviously a red grape, red skin grape.
Yeah.
Black grape, shall we say. Yeah. Okay. The next one?
Sumoll,
okay.
And also red grapes and Xarel-lo Vermell.
Oh,
that it's Xarel-lo Vermell. That it's
who knows? And but they're using those last three in very small quantities?
Very, very small. It's very residual production because there is almost in Xarel-lo Vermell that I think is the one. No, Sumoll and Xarel-lo Vermell. I think that is the ones that they produce the most. Is Xarel-lo Vermell. They have they exist like not more than 5 hectares. So it's something very it's something very unusual.
What about the grape variety Trepat? Because in, say, Cava Rosala, or Rosé, they could obviously use Garnacha, Monastrell, Pinot Noir, but Trepat, I always thought that might be local to the region. Is it not?
It is. It's a local variety. It comes from the big area production is the Denominación de Origen Conca de Barberá in Tarragona, more inland. There is a medieval village called Montblanc there that it's very, very touristic and very famous. But this grape variety is more local, known as local from the Conca de Barberá. And we can compare it with the Catalan Pinot Noir. We can talk about the Catalan Pinot Noir with Trepat. It's a very elegant style of wines. I love it. I'm a fan of Trepat. There are a couple of producers, very good producers in this.
And they're making 100% Trepat?
They do, yeah.
Okay.
Still wine, not sparkling. No?
Okay, so that's good to actually go and explore that variety. But let's go back to then the 3 main grape varieties. Well, the one that I always think is the most interesting is the Xarel-lo, which funny, here we go, shout out to myself. On my Eat, Sleep, Wine, Repeat YouTube channel, I've done a video on Panzablanca.
Panzablanca, yeah.
And Panzablanca is the same thing as Xarel-lo, depending on the region in where it's grown. Yeah. Good old grape varieties. Yeah. But I always think that's such a funky grape variety, just in general, because it is the earthy one. It's the bit more like mushroomy one. The negative of it in cheap Cava, I would say, is that rubber note. When people say rubber, that's coming from the Xarel-lo. But if done correctly, would you agree? It's kind of giving you the mushroom, the elegancy, earthy vibe. Yeah. Maybe?
Yeah. Totally agree. Yeah. So Panzablanca is coming from the Aleia region. That it's very close to Barcelona, very close to the city of Barcelona, and they call the Xarel-lo Panzablanca.
And to be honest, there's hardly any of that left, and because Barcelona is so nearby, they are trying always to build more buildings and expand. And so this tiny little region is like fighting and putting their feet down, saying, I can just imagine them all with pitchforks, and with flames, like, no, you will not touch our land.
You will not come here. Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm being a little bit dramatic. Anyway, moving on. Well, just for everybody, you've got the Macabeo, which for anybody who drinks white Rioja, that's Fiora.
Yeah.
And as far as I know, Macabeo is a bit more of a kind of just a citrusy, more neutral. It's much more about kind of texture and body. You can manipulate that grape to do more what you want. And then Parraje is your kind of appley citrus, I think. But this is the thing. When you blend these grapes, you don't necessarily get to understand them fully because it's more about the texture and the aging that you get with the sparkling that you try.
Yeah.
Do you have a favourite? We've talked about these different classifications. Do you still drink lots of Cava, Dio? Are you still behind Cava?
It's controversial, as we said before. I'm not against Cava. I think there are producers that still being in Cava. They are doing very good wines, looking for something interesting. But I like the idea of the concept of Corpinnat wines. And if I have to choose a wine, I will go in that case for a Corpinnat. It's a more restricted certification of quality, so I will try to find something from this under this label.
Yeah, well, what I'll do, again, I'll write in the show notes, those 3 classifications that we've talked about that really focus on quality, they are all 100% organic. It's all about restricted yields and also paying more for the grapes as well. So it's much more sustainable. Shall we say? So I'll put that down in the show notes so people can actually look out for that on the label. Because I think that gives people an opportunity to actually explore the world of, we can't even say Cava, can we? The world of the world of traditional method sparkling from Spain.
Yeah.
Is that what we would group this category in now?
Yes, they have to work in something, how to categorize everything, because I think they are creating a very, how we can say it, non-easy way to understand the sparkling wines of Spain.
Yeah, no, I fully understand. Now, I have a question. You touched on some of the classifications having to stick with Brut or below, which I already mentioned. Brut is 6 grams or less. But the very sweetest in France, which would be like 50 grams or more of sugar per litre, they would say Doux, D-O-U-X. But I have no idea how to pronounce it in the Catalan.
Yeah.
In Catalan.
In Catalan.
It's spelled D-O-L-C with a little underneath.
Yeah.
Dolce. I've never had to ever pronounce it out loud. How would people pronounce that?
So it's a dolce.
Dolce. Okay, so like dolce. Yeah. So a little bit almost Italian in style. Dolce.
Yeah,
okay.
Dolce.
Okay, fabulous. That's nice to finish our conversation on something sweet. Dolce. People know now.
Dolce, yeah.
Yeah. Now, is there anything else people should know about?
Well, there is also something interesting on this, because before creating the Corpinnat mention, there was another project after the Raventos Blanc decided to move out of Cava. That is the classic Penedès denominación de origen. And this is a regulated denominación de origen, like Cava. Mm-hmm. So it's official. And this is for producers who were not agreed to stay in Cava, different to the ones that created Corpinnat, and they moved to a specific, specific denomination from Penedès, that is the classic Penedès. And these are the traditional method sparkling wines coming from Penedès, from the boundaries of Penedès. Again, 100% organic, but in that case, the minimum aging is 15 months.
I think the classic Penedès classification was actually the first 100% organic classification in the world.
Oh, maybe.
I'm pretty sure. But it seems this region, I think people should, what we've talked about, the amount of these different classifications now that are so into quality, have amazing kind of restrictions so that you get better quality and are all organic, which we all know is healthier for us, no chemicals. I think the world of Spanish sparkling wine is getting better and better, right?
Hopefully, yeah. No, it is. Yeah, it is. It's every day is more regulated. I think there are different denominations working on the identity, on the singularity of the region, like Priorat, Rioja. They are working on a more Burgundy style system to recognize the zones, the villages, the specific lieu or the top vineyards. So I think it's the way where we have to go for Cava, also for sparkling wines, to find a way to create this system, this quality system for the land, and then the quality system for the product, for aging product, etc.
Well, with all these other classifications, Carver is only going to get better, the Carver DO, because they know they're going to have to, right?
They have to, yeah.
To keep up, to catch up.
Yeah, they have a lot of pressure now.
So people need to watch this space. Let's finish off with you suggesting a few of your favourite bottles.
Yeah. So if you're looking for a Cava, I recommend you to go for a Cava de Paraje Calificado. That one is called Can Prats. It's one of the specific vineyards, the Parrajes. Okay. It's produced by Vins al Cep, and it's called Claror. It's a Brut Nature, and it's a Gran Reserva 2012. Awesome. This is 4 hectares biodynamic viticulture vineyard coming from the coasters of the Rio Anoia in Penedès. Mm-hmm. And it's coming from loam limestone soils made using the grape varieties, the local grape varieties, Xarel-lo, Macabeo and Parellada, but the very old vines. Mm-hmm. They planted Xarel-lo in 1960, Macabeo in 1947, Parellada in 1969. So it's a very, very old vineyards. Over 50 years old. Hand harvest, indigenous yeast, and the fermentation, vinification separated each other. It's a great wine. It's a very fresh and honest wine, very elegant and complex at the same time. So it's It's amazing. It's a really nice one. Yeah.
Fab. Okay, so I'm going to write that all in the show notes. Andres, you're amazing. As I said to everybody, if you speak Spanish, go to his YouTube channel and learn and get educated by the Sommelier of the Year 2019 in the Sud de France, UK.
Thank you.
Nice way.
Thank
out,
you,
right?
Janine.
Andres,
Yeah.
when you come back to England, let's go for a drink.
Of course. We should go for some Catalan bubbles.
Yes, with some Catalan bubbles. And for now, you go and enjoy the sunshine.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You
Thank
too.
you,
Bye. So I think from that chat with Andres, we can really see that Carver isn't just Carver anymore, and it's certainly not the cheap fizz that some people assume it is. So to summarise those four, shall we say, categories, brands, labelling terms, one of them is a DO. There are the three that are all organic. That is Corpinnat, which has aging on the lees of at least 18 months. There's Conca del Ru Anoia, which is again 18 months, also biodynamic, and that is effectively Raventos y Blancs, their personal labelling term. And then there is the DO Penedès, which has created classic Penedès, which is 15 months of aging. Then the last one, which quite clearly Andres got very excited about and highly recommends, is within the Carver DO, but it is the highest quality with 36 months aging. Does not have to be organic, but have very, very strict requirements, and effectively is only a single vineyard carver. So single vineyard carvers with these strict regulations are called Cava de Paraje Calificado. All of this I'm going to put down in the show notes. So look out for those four labelling terms on the bottles of sparkling wine from Spain, and that will guarantee you a much better, higher quality and cleaner sparkling wine. Now, I said I'd talk about sweetness levels. So just to go through so you understand when you see something on the label. If you see Brut nature, there is no sugar added at all at the end of the process, which means there is less than 3 grams of residual sugar per litre. If you see extra Brut, that's the next level up, that will be between 3 grams of sugar to 6 grams. If you see Brut, that is generally the most standard you'll probably find. That's going to be 6 grams to 12 grams of residual sugar per litre. Then you can see Seco, or in other places Sec, that's 17 to 32 grams per litre of residual sugar. Semi-Seco is 32 to 50 grams. And then Dulce, the D-O-L-C with a little is going to be 50 grams and plus. You can use those terms across the board. Again, if you see them in champagne, it's going to be the same thing. So now you know, depending on how much sugar you want in and what style, perhaps what food you're having, what to go for. So let's actually take that to the food pairings, to be honest. I'm going to talk about my favourite food pairings based on Brut, extra Brut, even Brut Nature level, because certainly in the UK, that is generally, when it comes to Carver and the Corpinnat that we find in the UK, it's generally that level of sweetness. So again, what grows together goes together. A really nice Gran Reserva aged Carver would go perfectly with some aged Manchego, lovely cheese. Also think of jamon. It's perfect with tapas. The thing is, sparkling wine goes very well with egg, which is something that doesn't often work with other wine pairings. So think of a tortilla that's typical with your tapas platter. You can go with fried food. All that high acidity will cut through. So like some calamari, that would be absolutely delicious. But it's going to go with all your fresh fish. Go with oysters. Go with prawns. Actually, ironically, artichokes are very, very tricky to pair and can go very well with that slightly earthiness. Sometimes it's hard now to differentiate always between a very good quality Carver and good quality champagne, but I always find that Carver is a little bit richer and also a little bit earthier. So yeah, perfect with those artichokes. And don't forget there is Rosala Rose, and if you are talking rosé, they are going to use great varieties such as Pinot Noir, Grenache, Trepat, as we already mentioned in the chat with Andres, and also Monastrell, also known as Mourvèdre in France. And with a rosé, I love burrata. That creamy, milky style of cheese is delicious, super delicious with Chago vegetables, a paella. I mean, both would work well, normal Cava and Rosala, but I really like, with the prawns and the spices and the paprika, a rosé, a Cava Rosala, and smoked salmon. Classic pairing, but delicious. So loads for you to try when you get cracking with any sparkling wine that you get from Spain. So I'm going to finish up with my quote of the week. This is from Benjamin Franklin, and he says, "The discovery of wine is a greater moment than the discovery of a constellation. The universe is too full of stars." Well, I hope that with these 4 new categories potentially for you, if you've never tried a Corpinnat, if you've never had the Cava de Paraje Calificado, you will now find a new moment, and it shall be more exciting than the discovery of a constellation. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope this has been interesting and you've learned something new, and you're going to go dash out and get some delicious Cava or one of the others. Please do subscribe if you haven't already. Share this with your wine-loving friends. Do get this out there and leave me your reviews. All my details will be down in the show notes, as I always say. Grab yourself a nice glass of fizz, and until next time, cheers to you.